expected points, captaincy, clean sheet odds, the best players to buy, and I've even thrown in a couple of free hit drafts for you. This video has got all the information you need to know ahead of double game week 34. Alright then, we're going to start off by talking about the top players for expected points by position. We're going to look at a 1 week view of the world and then a 3 weeks looking a bit further ahead. I'd usually suggest, if you're looking to bring a player in, yes, you can look 1 week, which might be important for game week 34 if you're on your free hit. But ultimately, you need to look a little bit further ahead. So hopefully the 3 week view will help you with that. So just for game week 34 alone, David Raya is the top keeper and by some margin by the looks of it. Wolves and Chelsea are his two fixtures. They did have a bit of a blip, I'll admit, in game week 33, but I do still think Arsenal are the strongest defence in the Premier League, and that's reflected in David Raya's expected points. In Wolves and Chelsea, I think, those are two fixtures where Arsenal could conceivably keep a couple of clean sheets. Henderson of Crystal Palace has West Ham at home and Newcastle at home. Please replace Kelleher with Alisson, who's now starting for Liverpool. Liverpool got Fulham and Everton both away. Not too sure how likely they are to actually keep clean sheets in those games. For me, I think my three top keepers for game week 34 would be Raya, Henderson and Pickford. I think Henderson and Pickford might not have quite the same clean sheet odds as David Raya, but they do traditionally make a lot more saves, so potentially that's where they recoup some of their points difference. Jose Sa, obviously the starting Wolves keeper's up there as well. Neto, Grubic, if I said that correctly, the Sheffield United starting keeper's up there. One of the Liverpool bench goalkeepers is up there as well. I'm not going to try and say his name. Not too sure any of those Liverpool goalkeepers that aren't Alisson are worth picking. And then Martinez is the top goalkeeper with a single fixture. All right, so looking ahead to the next 3 weeks, and again, David Raya is the top goalkeeper. See Pickford in second place, Henderson in third. I think ultimately we see Raya there with Arsenal being the top defence in the league. Pickford being up there with Everton having a couple of quality fixtures after their double game week. I actually don't mind Pickford as a long-term goalkeeper option. 4.7 million, makes a decent amount of saves. I think Everton have 9 clean sheets so far this season. That's ahead, of course, of them playing Chelsea tonight. They've got Brentford and Luton in 35 and 36. Admittedly, they don't have a double, but I still think that's a really nice set of fixtures. Interestingly, we don't actually see Petrovic on this list. Obviously, Chelsea having a double game week in game week 35. He also doubles again in game week 37. But yeah, the view's not showing 37. And I just don't think he's quite there in terms of expected points with the quality we've seen from the Chelsea defence. Top goalkeeper with just single game weeks is Dubravka. Newcastle actually kept a clean sheet in game week 33. He's got Palace away, Sheffield United and Burnley as his next three. They're 3 pretty nice fixtures, even though he doesn't double. Martinez, Neto, Flecken, Ederson. They're up there as top keepers for the next few weeks as well. Defenders kind of follow a similar trend to the goalkeepers, really. It's dominated by Arsenal. Obviously, they're the top team for clean sheet odds, the top defence in the league this season. And really, the top 4 predicted Arsenal defenders are the 4 that I'd probably expect to start for them most games in game week 34. The only one I'd be a little bit unsure about is Zinchenko. Didn't play very well at all in game week 33, so there is a good chance I think Kivior comes back into that 11. For me, I'd say I'd probably avoid the left back or a potential left back for Arsenal, and I'd focus on picking White, Gabriel and Saliba as my 3. Ben White is the leader, 10.1 expected points compared to Gabriel and Saliba on 9.4 and 9.1. Personally, when looking at price and also goal threat, I still feel like Gabriel is the best Arsenal defender and probably the best defender in FPL right now. I think Ben White was lucky to outscore both Gabriel and Saliba in 33 because he got subbed off early. Got subbed off on 60 minutes just before Arsenal conceded the first goal against Villa. So yeah, fair play if you've got Ben White, but I consider yourself quite lucky that you got some clean sheet points from him at the weekend. Like I said, I still think Gabriel is the strongest Arsenal defender. Trent, Virgil van Dijk and Robertson are up there for Liverpool. I really like Trent and Van Dijk. Not massively sure about Robertson because we've seen him rotated a fair bit this season, although he was really Liverpool's best player in 33. Probably the kind of player that you expect to drag them over the line when they're having a poor run of form, just with that sort of leadership quality that he has. So he could well start both games of 34 and could be a good option. And then Mitchell, probably alongside Munoz, the most attacking of the Crystal Palace defenders. Obviously, they have a couple of nice fixtures, good clean sheet odds, and Mitchell's getting forward quite a bit, playing wing back. Likewise, Munoz as well, who doesn't quite make this list, but I think is a good option. So those are the top defenders for this week. Just looking ahead to the next 3 weeks, and to be honest, it follows a similar trend to game week 34. Arsenal defenders dominate, obviously a double game week in 34, and they are the top defence in the league, right? So you can see those same four we saw with the one game week view. Virgil van Dijk and Trent up there as well, two top Liverpool defenders. Probably expect them to start both games. Virgil van Dijk probably has a bit of goal threat from set pieces. We all know how good Trent is going forwards. West Ham and Tottenham following on from 34, so I don't think those are necessarily the best fixtures. But with Trent, you're kind of picking him for clean sheets and attacking returns, right? Rico Lewis is up there. Guardiola, Cher and Akanji are the top defenders for the next few. On to the midfield then, and Salah is the top midfielder for game week 34. Fulham away and Everton away as his two fixtures. I think he's probably the best captain as well, but we'll get onto that in a second. Odegaard in second place is, interestingly, the top Arsenal midfielder. Not sure if I agree with that. I don't know what you think in the comments. I think it's probably between Havertz and Saka for me personally as the top Arsenal midfielder. But yeah, Draft Town have Odegaard in second place. Luis Diaz, 11.9 expected points. Havertz and Saka, 10.9 and 10.1. McAllister, Eze, Sarabia and Rice round off your top midfielders for 34. It's really interesting when you look over the next 3 game weeks. You'd expect Salah to be top, but the Draft Town algorithm absolutely loves Cole Palmer. He hasn't played in game week 33 yet to get a judgment call on what kind of form he's in. He's got Arsenal away in 34, and then obviously a double game week in 35 where most people I think will captain him, and 36 against West Ham, which is a really nice fixture. And as you can see there, the Draft Town algorithm absolutely loves him, and yeah, he's got a double in 35, and that pushes him across to #1 spot for midfielders over the next 3 weeks. And then it's a very similar order to what we've seen for top midfielders for 34. Salah, Diaz, Odegaard, Havertz. De Bruyne's up there as well, even though he doesn't double. McAllister, Saka and Eze. And Bruno Fernandes, interestingly, who also doesn't double, pulled out what I thought was one of his best performances in a United shirt against Bournemouth. Unfortunately, they couldn't get over the line. I do think Bruno Fernandes is looking pretty good, and he's doubling in 37. So with that in mind, Sheffield United, Burnley, Crystal Palace as the next 3. He could be a decent option. Forwards then for game week 34, and of course Haaland doesn't have a double game week, so we're seeing other forwards overtake him as the top options. Darwin Núñez is top for expected points, 10.5 for game week 34. Solanke in second place. I'd actually say I prefer Solanke to Darwin Núñez just for security of minutes and the fact that he takes penalties. And I think with Jota being back for Liverpool, he could well take some minutes away from Darwin. I wouldn't say Darwin is necessarily nailed on to even start for Liverpool anymore. So for that reason, I'd probably put Solanke as my personal #1 forward. Obviously, the Draft Unexpected point says differently. Mateta, who had a really dangerous game, I would say, against Liverpool. Jesus, McBurney, Haaland, Isak, Watkins, Alvarez are your top strikers. Looking over the next 3 weeks then, and despite not having a double game week in that time frame, Haaland is the top forward for expected points. Darwin Núñez in second, Isak up to 8 million now in third, Solanke in fourth, Mateta, Jackson, who obviously has a double in 35, could be a nice differential if you fancy it. McBurney, Jesus, Alvarez and Watkins are your top forwards. Right, quick look at the clean sheet odds then, and it's a bit of a confusing one with so many teams having a double game week. We've got Arsenal as the most likely team across 34 to, well, they've got the highest clean sheet odds basically with their combined couple of fixtures, 48 in their first one, 38 in their second one. Liverpool in second place, 33-36. Everton, 38 and 14. Crystal Palace, 29 and 23. Man United are 42% to keep a clean sheet against Sheffield United. Not sure how much I believe that. Let me know in the comments if you think Man United are going to keep a clean sheet in 34. Man City, 36. Wolves, 25 and 13, Bournemouth 14 and 23, and Villa on 29. Now, usually any teams below 30%, I wouldn't want to back a clean sheet from. So I'd say Villa below, I wouldn't want to start defenders from those respective teams. Right, I'm going to use a couple of sources of expected points data to talk through who I think is the best captain. Although, got to be honest, I think it's quite obvious what I'm going to say. Salah dominates in terms of expected points on the Draft Town algorithm. Got Odegaard in second, Diaz, Havertz, Darwin, White and Saka are the top options there. I don't mind Eze as a really outside differential shout, just with his such low ownership. He's not on this list, but I don't mind him alongside Cunha. Although Cunha does have Arsenal as one of his fixtures, which puts me off a little bit. We also didn't see Cunha on any of the strikers lists. That's because he didn't well, he was a fitness doubt going into game week 33, and the draft time algorithm hasn't quite caught up with the fact that he's fit and ready to go now. So Cunha is definitely an option. We'll talk about him in a second. FPL review also has Salah as the number 1, but it's quite close between him and Saka. So Draft Hound have Salah number 1. FPL review have Salah number 1 as well. But interestingly, the Saka expected points between the two are quite different. Draft Hound has Odegaard as the second best. Saka is, what's that, the 7th best option. He's very close with Salah in terms of FPL review expected points. So something interesting to consider. But Salah is the top player across both platforms. Now, beyond just the expected points data, I wanted to give my opinion on who I think are the best options from each position. If you've watched my last couple of videos from this game week, I'll have showed this graphic there as well. I think it's really quite a nice way of laying out who I think decent options are this week. So for me, in terms of goalkeepers, I've classed them by 3 basic categories. So great picks, decent picks, and players I'd probably avoid. Raya and Pickford, for me, are the 2 strongest goalkeepers. Everton, I just think, slightly better defensively than Crystal Palace and Bournemouth. That's why I put Pickford in this category compared to Neto and Henderson. They're all keepers that make a decent amount of saves, though, and ultimately I don't think there's too much in it. And then Raya, he's playing for the best defence in the league, right? So you can't not say he's a great pick. Like I said, with Neto and Henderson, I think they're very decent. I just don't think they're quite as good defensively as Everton are this season. Of course, I'd avoid Kelleher. You know, he's been replaced by Alisson in game week 33, and I expect Alisson to continue in the Liverpool starting 11. And then I'd also avoid the Sheffield United goalkeeper, right? Even though they got a double game week, you're not going to want to pick him. I think there are a fair few decent defenders you can genuinely go for this week. Gabriel, Saliba and Ben White are my top 3 from Arsenal. And then Van Dijk and Trent from Liverpool. I'm not sure, other than paying maybe Robertson, I'd be picking any other defenders from those respective teams. Aït-Nouri, I think, is a great pick, but obviously need to monitor his fitness. He didn't feature in game week 33 after picking up a calf injury in 32, so we need to keep an eye on the news. But I think with his attacking upside, probably worth the risk. Branthwaite and Mykolenko of Everton, I think, are decent options. Branthwaite being the cheapest sort of double game week defender I think you can pick. Mykolenko being a bit more expensive, but I'd suggest probably a bit more attacking than Branthwaite. Zabarnyi, Smith and Senesi of Bournemouth, I think, are decent picks as well. They have got well, I think they don't play Man United, do they? But they got some tough fixtures mixed in with their double. So, yeah, I'd question if you'd really want to pick a Bournemouth defender. If I were to pick one, I'd probably go Senesi. I think Zabarnyi's nailed on for minutes, but not a great deal of attacking threat. And Smith, he got subbed off early in game week 33 against Man United. I'm just not sure if he'll play both games of the double, whereas I think Senesi probably does, and he is the most attacking of the Bournemouth defenders. And then Munoz of Crystal Palace looks to be playing basically like a right winger for them at the moment. And I think he's a really decent option. Players I'd avoid, well, obviously goes like saying I wouldn't really pick any other Wolves defenders or Sheffield United players at all. I mean, why would you want a Sheffield United defender? Liverpool and Arsenal, I wouldn't pick outside of the ones really that I've already said. Midfielders, and I think it's pretty easy really. Salah and Saka are just almost essential for me really. I hate using that word, but given, yeah, they're just 2 of the best players in the game and they got a double game week, it kind of makes sense to go for them. I really like Eze for game week 34 as well. I just think he's nailed on to start for Palace. Looks to be pretty much, you know, directly involved in every single goal that they score. And if you're on your free hit as well, he's a really nice differential. I think he's only 3.5% owned at the time of recording this video. And I don't think, if you're not on your free hit, players are not going to be transferring him in great deals. But I think if you're on your free hit, it really allows you to pick a low-owned player like Eze just for this 1 week, which a lot of other players in the game won't be able to do. So it gives you a really nice differential option. And for this week, I think he's a really good asset. Diaz and McAllister of Liverpool, I think are really nice to go for. Odegaard and Havertz, I really like them from Arsenal. Sarabi and Hwang, I like them from Wolves. Even though he's got Arsenal, I'd back Palmer to do all right, even though he's got a single. Brereton Diaz of Sheffield United is sort of along the lines of Eze as a nice differential. Obviously, I like Elise as well. I just slightly prefer Eze because Elise has just returned from injury. Game week 33 was his first start back, so he's proven to be a little bit injury prone since he signed for Crystal Palace. So for that reason, I'd say I just slightly prefer Eze for complete security of minutes. And then ultimately, if you're looking to buy a double game week midfielder outside of this list, I'm not sure I would recommend it. I think if you stick to the players on this screen, you'll be doing all right. Right, finally, the forwards. And I think with the double game week, there are a couple of players that I would absolutely recommend. Solanke and Cunha, I think, nailed on, plays 90 minutes for their respective teams and take the penalties. I think they kind of tick all the boxes you want. And both of them are in really good form this season. Calvert-Lewin also ticks those boxes as a player that starts every game and takes penalties, but he's just not in such good form this season. So that's why I can only really consider him a decent pick. Darwin Núñez is very decent, although I do think his minutes are going to be managed alongside Jota now. I think Jota could eat into his minutes. Mateta I think is really nice. I just wouldn't quite put him in the same category as Solanke and Cunha, and he's not the penalty taker for Crystal Palace. And then, I mean, I've got to recommend, I think Haaland and Watkins, even though they've only got a single game week, could be really nice as well. And judging by his performance in game week 33 and the fact that you definitely can't say he's nailed on in that Arsenal team, if you're looking to go a bit differential and go for Gabriel Jesus, for me, I just think it's a little bit too risky. So I'd avoid him and definitely stick to the players in the green and yellow. Just to end off the video, I thought I'd talk through a couple of free hit drafts for you. I think basically it summarises the players that I've said are good options. What I've done with this team is I've picked within a £100 million budget. So if you've got a bit more budget available, you might be able to upgrade some positions here, and I'll kind of talk through there's only one player I'd really consider upgrading. I went for Pickford in goal, kind of sold him already as kind of a really good asset to go for. Like I said, I think it's worth taking the risk on Aït-Nouri, and obviously Senesi and Munoz are on the bench if he's not going to start. Gabriel and Virgil van Dijk. Virgil van Dijk would be the option I'd go for if I'm restricted on budget, but I'd definitely be looking to pick Trent if I could afford it. Saka, Salah, Havertz and Eze in midfield. I think these are probably the top 4 midfielders in my mind for game week 34. Solanke, Darwin and Cunha up front. Now, I will admit that Darwin's probably quite contentious given he's a bit of a minutes doubt with Diogo Jota. So the next team is it's not got Darwin in it basically, and it might be a bit safer for minutes. Henderson, Sarabia, Senesi and Munoz on the bench. The next team is basically the same, but I've replaced Darwin Núñez with Luis Diaz, who I just think is a little bit more safe for minutes. And that's basically all I've done. Mateta, it allows you to get Mateta on the bench as well if you fancy starting him ahead of one of the midfielders. But I think if you pick a free hit draft alongside something like this, maybe with Trent in instead of Virgil van Dijk if you can afford it, I think you'll do quite nicely in 34. Alright, and that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. Try to squeeze in all the info you need ahead of game week 34, and I think it covers you whether you're on your free hit or not. You're just using free transfers to this week, right? If you enjoyed it, please leave me a like rating. Let me know in the comments what you thought of some of what I had to say there. If you enjoyed the video and want to see more from me, you can subscribe to the Goal to Goal channel, which should be just there on your screen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.